The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Link with the Office of Child Care, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on provider certification of attendance. During the webinar, you'll see on your screen that there is a tab for questions. So if you have a question, just click on that, and then you can type in your question, and we'll see it, and we'll try to answer them during the webinar. If they're very specific to you, we might have to contact you later to talk about those. This is being recorded, so people will be able to view it later once we get it posted. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn over the time to Anne Slocum.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to talk about reviewing the provider reporting requirements. I'll just give a quick overview of that, and then really get into the provider monthly attendance certification requirement and how that will work, the certification process, some new resources and screenshots, and then the rollout period for how this will transition, and then we'll allow for the questions at the end. So as Kathy said, you can write your questions, and then we'll review them as we get through, at least to the certification piece. And then we will talk about, just a reminder on the 8-hour rule requirement that we presented in the webinar in October. Since this is effective this month, we thought it would be helpful to remind everyone of that rule change. So there are 4 reportable changes in the provider portal that the providers have the option of, or the ability to report. First is the child stopped attending, and that would include a child stopping attendance anytime during the current month, or you know that they're not going to be returning next month, or that they've attended less than 8 hours by the 25th of the month. Or if they've never attended, it could be someone that reported to DWS that they were enrolled, but then for whatever reason they never brought their children. The third one is to apply a DWS credit to a case. This would occur if we overpaid funds for a month and the child is still attending. Rather than submitting an overpayment, we have the ability to deduct the funds from the next month's subsidy payment. And then the fourth one is to report a lower child care rate per child if you have a part-time rate or lower rate for a specific child or children in your care. To report changes in the portal, you go to the Children in Care tab, and then you would click on the actions next to the case that you're wanting to report the change, and then click on one of those 4 categories, and then just follow the prompts to submit the change on that case or that child. It's a policy requirement for all providers who receive subsidy payments to report children never in care or who have stopped attending within 10 days or by the 25th of the month, whichever is sooner. It's a policy requirement now for licensed providers to certify that the changes in attendance have been reported. So the first step of certifying attendance is to review all of the children in care. Click on each case to view the children, and once you've done that, report the children who stopped attending or were never in care in the provider portal by the 25th of each month. So again, this includes children who attended less than 8 hours as of the 25th, children who will no longer be returning in the current month, or children who will no longer be attending next month if you are aware of that information. And then between the 25th to the last day of each month, certify in the portal by attesting that each case has been reviewed and reportable changes have been reported. So I want to clarify that when you're going through, you're looking at open cases and reporting changes on open cases. If there's a closed case, it could be closed for numerous reasons. If you know that that closed case, that the children are not going to be returning So if the case is going to reopen and maybe they've chosen another provider, you can contact us. If you're not sure if the parent has already reported that to us, you can email the Office of Child Care and we can research that to make sure that that's been noted on the case if you know that they're not going to be attending the following month. So when you certify, there will be one certification button per facility at the top of the children in care screen. If you are a large center, you have multiple centers and they're all connected in the portal, you'll be able to see multiple facilities listed on that children in care screen. But the certification button will only be displayed from the 25th through the end of the month. And if there are multiple facilities, each facility will need to have a certification completed during that time. The certification must be completed from between the 25th and the last day of each month to count for that month. A paper certification form is available. So in the event that there's a technical issue or you need additional help, we can use a paper form, but that certification must be completed within that same time period as the online certification. And I'll explain how you can obtain that paper form in the event that you need that. So a user with a financial administrator role and users with a facility administrator role have the ability to certify in the portal. Once the certification is completed, the certification button will change to show that it's been completed and it will disappear after the last day of the month. We have some new reports. We introduced the monthly and the historical reports in our last webinar. And also I mentioned that the children in care report would be coming soon. I'm going to go ahead and show you some screenshots so this all makes more sense for visual people like myself. And I will show you how the changes to these reports as well. Let me get out of here. So when you log into the portal on anytime between the 25th through the last day of November, you're going to see this pop-up message. It's going to say, reminder, certification is due this month for one or more facilities. Please visit the Children in Care tab to complete the certification process. Certification is due for all facilities by the end of the month. So if you're a licensed provider, you will have one of those two roles, either the financial administrator role or the facility admin role. You will see this pop-up message every time you log into the portal until that certification has been completed. You won't see it again until the 25th of the month. It will disappear once the certification is completed. So when you go to the Children in Care screen, try to enlarge this. Up at the top, you will see this blue certification button for your facility. And again, if there's multiple facilities, you'll see multiple certification buttons. So when you click on, so first of all, you want to go to the Children Care summary below, review each of those cases, report any changes that are required to be reported. Once you've taken the time to do that, come back up to the top, click on certify, and then you will see this pop-up message. And this is the certification. It's saying that you attest as a business owner or representative that's authorized to manage the portal account, that you've completed the following. That you've reviewed the details for each case and reported any children who were never in care or attended less than 8 hours this month. You also reported any children who've stopped attending or to your knowledge will no longer attend next month. And then it talks about penalties if perjury is committed by purposely giving false information, concealing or withholding relevant facts or information, or failing to accurately report changes. And then there's also a reminder that I understand that I'm required to report any lower negotiated rates for individual children and report credits for children who are still in care if a higher subsidy payment was received than charged to the customer. And then you click on I agree. And then the next screen will take you back to the children in care screen, and then you will be able to see it will turn to green, so it will show that it's been completed. And that's what the certification is. It's just verifying that you've taken the time to view all of the children in care and reported any actions that or changes that were required. Now we have some reports. I'll review these again. The historical change report has start and end date fields that are required to be entered. If you want to look at all of the changes that have been reported, you can see those here for that time period that you've entered. Okay, so we have a question, so we're going to stop and answer the question. Yeah, so the question on the certification is, are we going to check each case name? Yes, you should do that because you want to make sure that the children that we're paying for are actually in your care. And unless you open up each one of these individual records, this front page does not tell you that. So you do need to look at each record individually. You can do that by just clicking on the case on that row, or you can go into actions and click on view details, and the same information will pop up. I will show you in a minute a report that we're working on that will help to make this a lot simpler so that you do have a lot of cases. It will be much easier than having to go through each individual case. So we've also, I wanted to mention on this children in care report, it is a historical report. However, we don't have all of the data from, since we started payment to provider. This is really more of a historical report starting this month. So if you put in a historical date today in your report, you may be able to see some information, but it might be incomplete because we just, our programmers don't have everything historically. It's just going forward that you'll be able to look back a year from now and see all of the changes that you've reported if you need that information. We also added another type, action type, that certification completed, so that you can see the date that a certification was done and the person who did that if you have multiple people who are authorized to certify for your facility. Here's another example of the historical change report where just one action type is selected. So that they selected stop childcare, so only those that specific action will pop up for that time frame. This report is also exportable to Excel, so you can download that if you need to. And then the monthly change report is just always going to be the current month. You can go in and see what changes have already been reported. So if you are reporting changes throughout the month and now it's the end of the month and you're ready to certify, but you can't remember if you reported a certain change for a specific case, you can go to the monthly report change summary and it will identify the cases that changes have already been reported on. So I want to show you another report that will also help address the question that we just answered. And this is the Children in Care Summary report. Let me go back to that Children Screen report and show you where I pulled this up from. So on your Children in Care tab, right at the bottom of your cases, it says Export to Excel. If you click on that, a record will come up showing all of the children in your care. Well, a record will come up showing all of the cases in your care. Basically, it's a screenshot of this page right here. But what we are working on that's not available yet is that we're adding this additional column to show the children's names and ages, so that if you, like I said, have a big center and you have lots of cases to sort through, rather than opening each one individually, you can go to this children in care summary, and at a glance you can see all of the children listed for each case. This report is only available for the current month, so it is downloadable. If you want to save your records for historical reasons, or if you want to print it, you can do so. But just keep in mind that if you want to go back and look next month, you won't be able to find it. You'll only be able to see the payments for December next month. So keep that in mind. This report is on the portal, but the children column is not there yet. We anticipate that it will be there on November 14th. So just keep that date in mind to watch for this report to change, so that you'll be able to have the list of the children's names. We think that this will be very helpful for you to complete the certification process. Okay. So we have a couple of examples of questions that we anticipated that you might have. So let's say that a provider reviews and updates all of their cases. They complete the certification in the portal on the 25th, and then the very next day a customer reports that their last day of the children in care will be on the 30th of that month. How does that affect the certification, or what happens? So you would report this change within 10 days through the portal. The certification the following month will include this change was reported. And so you don't need to certify again. You've already certified on the 25th. We do expect you to report changes within 10 days, but the certification the next month will account for that. Depending on how late in the month you report it, though, it may result in an overpayment that you will have to repay. So we will, if you report a change after the 25th, we will try to stop that payment from going out. But if it's too late and the issuance has already run for the next month, then that's where you get into a potential overpayment for that 1 month. And then what happens if I wait to certify until the last day of the month? So the reason that we're allowing the 25th to the last day of the month is just to allow providers a little bit of extra time to certify and complete that process. You still need to report known changes to the department by the 25th of the month. If a change occurs after the 25th, report the change to the portal. And like I said, DWS will make every effort to ensure that the payments stop before the end of the month. When you certify later in the month, you are certifying that any additional changes that are known to you have been reported by that date. And again, it may result in an overpayment, but we'll try to stop it if we're able to. The Office of Child Care is allowing the months of November, December, and January for providers to get familiar with the certification change and the new reports that were introduced. So there will be no penalties accrued during this time period. But the Office of Child Care will reach out to licensed providers to help them with the transition to this new requirement during the next 3 months. The first month that the certification will officially count as a policy requirement will be in February of 2018. There are consequences for not certifying. A provider will be disqualified to receive child care subsidy payments if 3 certifications are missed within any 6-month period. A late certification will not be accepted. You can contact the Office of Child Care or Care About Child Care if you need help with the process. A paper form is available. Also, as I mentioned earlier, our office, and we'll make sure that Care About Child Care has access to the paper forms. We also have them available on our Office of Child Care website at jobs.utah.gov in the Provider Resources section. And there's also a link in the frequently asked questions in the Child Care Provider portal that you can print that out in the event that you need that. If a provider has missed 2 months within a 6-month period, the Office of Child Care will send a provider a warning notice, just as a reminder, because we don't want providers to be disqualified. The first disqualification will last for a period of 12 months. So that's a severe penalty. So we want to do, as much as we can to help you make sure that that doesn't happen. So we will send a warning if 2 months are missed in a 6-month period. Okay, now we'll take more questions on the certification process.
Okay, first question. Is there a way to see how much of the funding is allotted to each child in care rather than just the family total?
There is not right now, but that is a request that we've heard repeatedly, and we are working, we've talked to our programmers about the possibility of doing that. That may be a possibility down the road. It's not something in the near future, but maybe within the next year or two, that might be something that we can provide more detail on.
Next question. If the child comes into care in the middle of the month, does the provider get paid for the full month?
So it depends on there's a couple of different scenarios where a child would start mid-month. If it's a new application and they've applied mid-month, we would start and they're eligible, we can start the benefits as of the date that they started child care. If we've already paid another provider for that month and that the first provider has already provided 8 hours of care, then we will not make the change until the following month. So that if the parent stops going to the first provider, we will not pay the new provider until the following month if the funds have already been issued and the services have been provided by that first provider.
Also, if the child is scheduled to attend as of the first day of the month and they don't show up until mid-month, they have to be in care at least 8 hours in order for the provider, in order for you to keep that payment. If the child doesn't come until after the 25th, then that falls into the certification requirements that you need to complete.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. What if you have, what is the penalty? And that was the penalty for not certifying.
The penalty for not certifying, if you miss 3 months in any 6-month period, is a 1-year disqualification to receive any subsidy payments or CCDF payments for the first occurrence. The penalty gets bigger for a second and third occurrence.
Next question. What if you have multiple children on the same account and only one attends?
So in the child care provider portal, go to actions on that case and click on child stopped attending, and it will list the children on that case, and you would just report on that, on the children that are no longer there. It gives you the breakdown of the children to report on specific children who have stopped attending.
Next question. How about providers that have FFN certification? Do we have to do the monthly certifying process?
Providers are required to report changes every month. So if you are an FFN, family, friend, and neighbor provider, and a child stops attending, you're required to go into the portal and report that to us, that the child is no longer there. The certification piece that we just showed you, you will not be required to do at this time. There may be a future date where we will roll this out to all provider types. Currently, this only applies to licensed family and licensed center providers. Okay, so we're going to move on. We just have one last reminder here to cover, and that's this 8-hour rule change that we talked about in the October webinar. This is now effective as of November 1st. Providers may retain the authorized monthly subsidy payment so long as at least 8 hours of care were provided for the child by the 25th of the month. So rather than the child needing to be in care 8 hours by the 15th, we've extended that to the 25th. Or if the change was reported that the child did not attend 8 hours by the 25th. So if you let us know on the 25th that the child hasn't been here for 8 hours, and then they return later in the month and they do end up being there for 8 hours, you will not have an overpayment. You will be able to keep the full payment for the month. You will want to contact the Office of Child Care to let us know that you reported the change timely and now the child is back and they've met that 8-hour requirement, so that we can get in touch with the overpayment unit and stop that overpayment referral. We may require verification of attendance, and we may require that the parent contact DWS to determine their eligibility for the following month, and also to confirm that you'll continue to provide the care the following month. If you don't report the change by the 25th and they haven't been there 8 hours, and then they come back, we would only prorate the benefit and pay for the actual hours that the child's in care. They have to be there at least the 8 hours for us to prorate that payment. So again, it's really important that you report changes by the 25th of the month. It's to your benefit to do that. One of the reasons that we're doing the certification is to stop or to reduce the amount of overpayments. This won't completely stop them, but it will definitely reduce them, and it will reduce the amount of the overpayments that are occurring. So it's really important that this be completed. Are there any last questions? Okay. So again, this webinar is being recorded, and here are some resources. This PowerPoint will also be available in the same area that the recording will be available. So if you want to refer back to this PowerPoint, it usually takes a few days, sometimes up to a week, for the recording and the PowerPoint to be posted. So as soon as that's available, we will announce it on the What's New page in the provider portal. Thank you for your time. Oh, we have one more question.
Can we report early?
You can report throughout the month. You can report changes as they happen. The certification will only be available between the 25th to the last day of the month. That way, if there are changes later in the month, you have time to report those before you certify. Okay, it looks like that's all that we have. So thank you for your time. Oh wait, sorry, we keep getting more questions.
On vacation. What if we are gone on vacation?
Well, there's a few things. Remember that you can miss a month and still be compliant. If you are on vacation but you have internet access, you can certify through the portal online. You can also complete a paper application and submit that to us. So there's several different options in that scenario.
Let's see. Well, I haven't got paid at all because I still don't show up in the provider part.
Okay, so if you have specific questions about your facility or payment questions, please email us at occ@utah.gov. That's our provider helpline email account, and we can research those cases for you or research your account for you to see what's happening.
Do providers have sick days where the children do not attend because we're sick and we can keep the daily charge? Do providers have sick days where the children do not attend because we're sick and we can keep the daily charge?
I think that would be between you and the parent to work out. The parent will need to find alternate arrangements for their children so that they can go to work. So I think that's a decision between you and the parent if it's just a couple of days that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks again, everyone.